What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. A couple days ago we took a look at the mechanic that Riot is starting to use a lot recently in their designs, which was making an ability have a delay. And I want to kind of continue this topic a bit of discussing individual mechanics that go into champions, since it really shows a lot about how and why champions are made the way that they are, and the decisions Riot makes to bring together an entire champion's kit. And today we're looking at what's probably Riot's favorite mechanic, which is of course 3-hit passives. Let's get started. Today we're inspired a bit by Riot Gypsy Lord, who is probably my favorite champion designer at Riot, just because I really like his champion design style, and he's a relatively new, well I say relatively new, he's made 5 champions by now, but he helped pioneer the new era of champion design for League of Legends, which began around 2013 or so, which was when Riot as a whole really stepped up their entire champion design quality. And a big part of that I personally believe was because of Riot Gypsy Lord and the philosophies that he brought to champion designing. And one of those philosophies he brought that evolved over the years was the mechanic of the 3-hit passive. We've also seen some 4-hit passives and stuff, but those fall into the exact same category as the 3-hit passives. And Gypsy Lord absolutely loves this mechanic. And although he definitely wasn't the first person to introduce them to League of Legends, he definitely was one of, if not the person to popularize them recently, and turn the 3-hit passive into what is clearly one of, if not Riot's actual favorite mechanic right now to put on a champion. And he personally described the idea of a 3-hit passive mechanic to be just a very brilliant design. Now the reason why 3-hit passives are considered to be, well, brilliant in the eyes of Gypsy Lord and the other Riot designers comes down to a lot of things, with the overall idea being that they take something that would normally be a pretty boring element of gameplay and, well, just make it a lot more awesome. When you give someone a 3-hit passive, you take a typically boring and uninteresting element of gameplay, auto-attacking your opponent, and you make it a lot more exciting. Instead of just whittling away at your opponent for minuscule damage, you get to have this huge build-up and then massive explosive payoff on that 3rd hit. On a 3-hit passive, that 3rd hit just feels so awesome once you get it off, and the champion as well gets to make it even more awesome, because it allows the Riot designers to add in maybe extra particles, animations, and an awesome sound to make that 3rd hit feel super satisfying. For example, if you take someone like Jax's ultimate, when you get that 3rd hit, you get this huge satisfying whomp effect, and that really nice particle effect to really make you feel like that 3rd hit is as awesome as it is. So the 3rd hit is super extra awesome and makes a boring element of gameplay really satisfying, as opposed to maybe just extra bonus damage on attacks that are linear and generally uninteresting. But the thing that really makes a 3-hit passive truly amazing design is that it also makes the 1st and 2nd hits a lot more exciting as well, in addition to the 3rd one. Even though the 1st and 2nd hits do literally nothing, they still feel really good and a lot better than they otherwise would if it was just linear bonus damage, because the 3-hit passive gives those 2 first attacks build up, it gives them suspense on them, that leads to the eventual 3rd proc. And although yeah, they don't actually do anything, they do feel a lot more exciting and better than a linear bonus damage on auto attacks would, because of the build up to that goal of the 3rd hit. And so overall you're left with a character who has this really satisfying pattern of high moments in its gameplay, while also making every single attack feel a lot more exciting to land. And to give you guys an example of how awesome this mechanic is, I'll use the example that Riot Gypsy Lord used in an interview that he did, which is Alistar and his ultimate. Alistar's ultimate gives him bonus damage depending on the rank. When he casts it, his auto attacks are going to hurt a lot. But because of the way it works, a lot of the players don't even notice that it's there. And Gypsy Lord said that this is a great example of a place where a 3-hit passive would actually work really well. If you take Alistar's ultimate, and instead of saying, okay, all of his auto attacks are going to deal 50 bonus damage, you say, hey, let's give him a 3-hit passive, where the 3rd and final hit does 175 bonus damage, that 3rd hit just feels awesome to land, while the build-up and suspense makes the first 2 hits also feel a lot better than if you just had 50 bonus damage as well. Every single hit builds you up to that huge satisfying payoff with this awesome sound and particles to back it up. Whereas with just flat bonus damage, you don't really get the satisfaction, you don't get the particles, you don't get the sounds, and you definitely don't get that massive payoff at the end or the build-up leading up to it. As well, there's even another aspect that makes 3-hit passives more awesome, which is how they work when you're playing against them. A 3-hit passive is completely healthy and interactive design to play against. It's a really awesome way of gating power and making a play interactive by allowing you as the opponent playing against a 3-hit passive to make decisions based around that third hit of deciding to commit to a fight to let that third hit happen, or just choosing to try and avoid the third hit in small bursts of trades. It's a fantastic way to give a champion a super powerful ability while also making it fair and interactive for the opponents to play against. For example, take someone like Tahm Kench's Devour, which is an insane ability that is just incredibly powerful, but it becomes engaging to play against because of the 3-hit passive that is added onto his kit. It allows him to have that super powerful ability, those satisfying moments, and a much more interesting style of gameplay with a lot more depth to it, while also allowing the mechanics to be relatively fair for the opponents to play against as well. No matter your opinion of Tahm Kench, you can't deny that if his kit functioned in the exact same way that it does now, just without the 3-hit passive, it would honestly be totally ridiculous and probably become just absurd to play against. The 3-hit passive in Tahm Kench's kit adds in a lot more counterplay than otherwise might exist, and it's the absolute best form of counterplay too. Counterplay exists in many ways, shapes, or forms in League of Legends. Sometimes it's on an item or a summoner spell or some kind of mechanic, but the best form of counterplay is simply just counterplay through the means of your own decisions. There's no item you need to buy, no summoner spell to take, no mechanic you need to have in your kit. It revolves entirely around your decisions and the choices you make in your gameplay, which is honestly just awesome. If you took it away, it would either make him have a lot more linear and boring style of gameplay, or it would make him a lot less powerful overall, as you would have to sacrifice a lot of the big payoff moments that he has to flatten it out to a linear pattern of gameplay. Now with that said, do I think 3-hit passives are overused? I mean, maybe. I do think that 3-hit passives are one of, if not the actual best individual design mechanic that Riot incorporates on their champions, and it does get a little bit more leeway since it's just an awesome design. But at the same time, mechanics like this do still get stale. 3-hit passives definitely don't fall into the same category of something like auto attacks that should probably exist on every champion. And with mechanics like this, they do get a little bit stale, and when they become overused, they potentially lose a lot of the flavor and excitement surrounding them. So yeah, 3-hit passives are maybe a bit overused recently, but I would also argue that there's a lot of champions from the past that would have their gameplay improved a lot with the addition of a 3-hit passive. Alistar was a good example that we used previously in this video, but a lot of older champions as well, a lot of their lackluster abilities becoming a 3-hit passive would make them a lot more interesting. For example, someone like Warwick given a 3-hit passive on his W would make that ability a lot more interesting, or maybe Master Yi getting a 3-hit passive on his E. Now I'm not saying those champions should get 3-hit passives, just that it's one of the most immediate and obvious options if you were to try to give those characters more interesting patterns of gameplay. However, not every character wants to have the more interesting and complex patterns of gameplay. A lot of characters are boring and uninteresting, very intentionally to make them, better for new players and to cater to the audience who do enjoy playing simple champions. However, just because a mechanic might be a bit overused, it doesn't really change the fact that it is incredible design. On paper, 3-hit passives might be a bit overused recently, and they might be starting to get a bit stale. However, I personally think that they are just awesome, and I definitely don't mind seeing more in the future, because they really are just an amazing thing to give a champion if you want their gameplay to revolve a bit more around their auto attacks. Especially in a lot of melee tank champions, 3-hit passives make them have a lot more interesting patterns of gameplay. Riot Gypsy Lord had the idea of almost every melee champion having a 3-hit passive, and how that concept might affect, the top lane. And he mentioned that it probably would make top lane brawls a lot more exciting overall, since it adds a lot more meaningful interactions into melee versus melee fights, which is something that they have historically had trouble doing, and it's why a lot of top laners might perceive fights in lane to be, boring when playing a tank versus another tank. So as long as it's being done in a way that is successful and meaningful and not in a, like a let's give this guy a 3-hit passive because why not kind of way, then it's probably not going to get stale. But if it continues to be done in the way that it was on characters like Tahm Kench, like Braum, like Echo, and a lot more of the recent uses of this mechanic, I find that 3-hit passives are a good enough mechanic in their own right, as long as they are used well and designed in a way that makes a champion awesome, rather than just slapping it onto a kit, that they probably aren't going to get stale, or at the very least they will continue to create interesting, complex, and exciting patterns of gameplay. But that's what Riot thinks about it, and that's what I think about it. But I want to know what you guys think about 3-hit passives, so leave a comment. And as well, if there's another mechanic you might want me to take a look at in the future, leave a comment and I'll see what I can do. And if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, and if you didn't, hit that dislike. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.